Hey guys, I wanted to go over my Chieftain Self-Ignite Explodey Autobomber build that I've been playing. This build is quite fun to play. You just run around maps with the Ignite on you and yeah, enemies just explode around you. It's a nice easy Autobomber playstyle. It's relatively tanky as well. And yeah, the build came out of a concept I wanted to explore, which was explode with Chieftain and then igniting with that and scaling the ignite damage with Diamond Shrine and Perfect Agony. So Perfect Agony causes your damage over time multiplier to be equal to your critical strike multiplier value, but this only applies when you critically strike and your non-crits don't apply ailments. So you obviously want 100% crit strike chance. Previously it's pretty hard to achieve, especially on the Marauder side of the tree, but with the new Screams of the Desiccated Belt, we can get permanent Diamond Shrine, which allows us to always crit, and we always get the bonus from Perfect Agony. And since we're always critting, we can also get a ton of free crit multi from Maralene's Fallacy. So you can also volatile Varlob this up to like 300, over 300%, which is what I've got here. And then we're also getting Perfect Agony from Replica Azirius Acuity. So if you're not familiar with how Self-Ignite works, we use the unique staff to Fulcrum, which has the line, elemental ailments you inflict are reflected back to you. So this causes our ignites we inflict to get reflected back to us. So normally that's a bad thing, you know, you deal like some ignite damage and then you're gonna reflect it onto yourself and start dealing damage to yourself over time. So we solve that with the Chieftain Ascendancy, the Salio Cleansing Water, which has the line unaffected by ignite. This means that we still have the ignite on us, but we take no damage from it. So how does that help us in any way? Well, we can use the medium cluster jewel notable Fan the Flames, which says ignites you inflict spread to other enemies within a radius of 1.5 meters. So when we ignite an enemy, they're going to have a little ring around them, which causes enemies that come near it to also take the ignite damage that is inflicted on them. So this also applies to the ignite that's reflected back onto us. So we're going to end up with a little ring of ignite around us, and we can just run around with that ignite on us. And if we go up next to an enemy, they're going to start taking the ignite damage as well. And that's how we kill everything and we get that Autobomber playstyle. Because when those enemies die, they have a 10% chance to explode due to the Chieftain Ascendancy node Hinokora Death's Fury. And if they explode, they're going to inflict an ignite on other nearby enemies, and then that ignite will get reflected back onto us, which creates the Autobomber loop. And one of the other cool things about this build is that Chieftain Ignite, normally you gotta invest quite a bit into Ignite chance, especially global Ignite chance, to make sure your explosions always ignite. With Diamond Shrine, all your hits are critical hits, and the cool thing about critical hits is that they will always apply the elemental ailment of the associated elemental damage type. So in the case of fire damage, which is what our explodes are doing, they are gonna ignite if you critical hit with them. Since all hits are crits with Diamond Shrine, yeah, our explodes are always gonna crit and apply ignite, which is quite nice. We also scale up the duration of our ignites on enemies to around about 8 seconds. That's a combination of some passive nodes on the tree and the unique body armor Cloak of Flame, which can roll up to 75% increased ignite duration of enemies. You can buff this up further with a volatile Varlob. So yeah, it's quite a decent amount of ignite duration. Gives us some more coziness in our playstyle. So one of the issues with using the Screams of the Desiccated Belt is that you can't use any flasks, or you can't be affected by any flasks rather. So to get around this, we're just using some instant life flasks, Writhing Jar, and Dodri's Elixir. But the problem is that you have very little movement speed. Normally you get like 30% movement speed from your boots. So the way we fix that is we're using these elevated boots with Onslaught on kill, Tailwind on crit, and Elusive chance of Elusive on crit. So Onslaught gives us 20% movement speed, Elusive at Base effect gives us 30% increased movement speed, and Tailwind gives us 8% increased action speed. And you can also elevate those mods, which is what I have here. So we've also got 7% increased movement speed with Onslaught, and 25% increased effective Tailwind on you. You could technically also get increased elusive effect as well, but I've just gone for the Onslaught and the Tailwind mods here. So that gives us a ton of extra movement speed. And the other thing I've done to boost the movement speed is making use of reverse chill. So normally our explodes have pure fire damage, so they can't chill. So I've been using the Call of the Void Ring. This has the line, all damage with hits can chill. This means even our explosions or other hits dealing pure fire damage can chill. And then due to the fulcrum having elemental ailments you inflict are reflected to you, these chills are going to get reflected back to us. And with Chieftain explodes dealing so much damage, basically we're going to be hitting the max chill value, which is 30%. That gets reflected back to us. And then we can reverse that effect using the Winterweave Ring, which has the line, the effect of chill on you is reversed. So we're inflicting a 30% action speed debuff on enemies, while we get a 30% action speed buff on ourselves. The other cool thing about Call of the Void is it says enemies chilled by hits lessen their damage dealt by half of chill effect. So our chill effect goes up to 30%, so this is up to 15% less damage dealt by enemies. And this actually gets applied to the chill that's reflected back onto us, but it gets reversed. So instead of us doing 15% less damage, we're actually doing 15% more damage when we get a reflected chill. One thing to be careful of is the Pantheon node here, solved with Brine King. So we want to take this to avoid being frozen, but we don't want to have the node 50% reduced effective chill on you, as that will lessen the action speed buff that we get on ourselves. If you have this one unlocked, you need to redo the map with a Divine Vessel to remove that. So in terms of boss damage, I'm using Reap and I'm using the new Minion Pact support gem. Minion setup is Raise Spectre. I've raised Dark Marionette, so they respawn every 4 seconds. And this is supported by Minion Life, Empower, and Companionship. So that gives us like a ton of base damage for our Reap. So you can scale up to like 10 to 15 million boss DPS with Vile Reap up. And that physical damage gets converted to fire with the Fulcrum's base conversion, as well as Avatar Fire on the tree. Yeah, the Reap is just only for bossing when you don't have any ads around to explode, basically. In terms of defenses for the build, as Chieftain, we can easily get 90 max all res. So we are getting our max fire res from 2 of the max res passive wheels, 2 jewels, and we're also running Purity of Fire. Additionally, Cloak of Flame has the line 40% of physical damage taken as fire damage. You can also volatile that up as well. You can also roll similar mod on your hat implicit, and that boosts our physical mitigation by quite a lot. And in terms of multi-hit mitigation, I'm using the Forbidden Flesh and Flame combo of Defy Pain. This is pretty cheap. It's basically like a worse version of Defiance of Destiny. Can't use Defiance of Destiny because I'm using Maralene's Fallacy for that crit multi-scaling. So yeah, Defy Pain. It's a bit of block and spell block. We're about 45% block and 43% spell block. And we also get up to 5 endurance charges. During mapping, we are generating those with Disciple of the Unyielding, which is 8% chance to gain endurance charge on kill. And then on bossing, we're getting them from the Dojui's Elixirs flasks. Some of the issues of the build is actually from Call of the Void. The line, enemies chilled by hits can be shattered as though frozen. The problem is when we explode enemies, the hit damage is so big that while it does apply the ignite, it also shatters the enemies, which removes their corpses. so their corpses can't get that ignite prolif, which you'd normally expect. So yeah, if you have waves and waves of mobs, or like beyond monsters spawning after you've killed a pack of monsters, the clear might not feel as good there. The AoE on the self-ignite is also quite small, so it's quite a melee feeling build. It can feel a bit squishy in super juiced maps. You can also feel quite slow if you haven't killed or hit anything recently. And the build can feel a little bit ZDPS if your self-ignite runs out. And in terms of map mods we can't run, it's just you can't run no regen, less recovery, and minus max. What the build excels at though is high density mapping farm, where those explode chains can really do work, such as, breach farming, or anything where there's like a large amount of packs. I definitely wouldn't take this for Ubers. It's fine for normal pinnacle bosses, but if Ubers, the damage isn't really quite there. And in terms of budget, I put this build, I think current prices, it's about 300 divines. I've included a budget setup in the POB, which is maybe about 140 divines-ish now. A lot of that is the Screams of the Desiccated Belt. This was like 17 divines a few days ago. It's jumped up to like 50, 60 divines now. I think some other creators made a build with it. So yeah, that's bumped up the cost of the build quite a bit. You can still put the build together for a relative budget. It's quite a cozy playstyle. And yeah, that's about it for this video. Catch you guys later. Bye.